Let's talk about constructive play. Constructive play occurs when children use materials to build something. Making a block structure, shaping an animal out of clay, building a spaceship with Tinker toys, putting a puzzle together are all examples of constructive play. I believe that every household should have about 4 or 5 puzzles. 4 or 5 puzzles at differing levels of difficulty. One puzzle that I do recommend families either buying or making is an alphabet puzzle that has letters on it, so you can play with letters with kids. But puzzles start at a very young age, and one of the easiest ways to do a puzzle is just to find if a book dies a natural death, if it wears out, take the cover and cut it up and make a puzzle out of it. Kids lose puzzle pieces. We know that. I mean, puzzles are sort of like the sock bin, where there's always the errant lost puzzle piece that shows up 5 or 6 years later after the kids are out of school. But a nice way to do this, and a parent shared this with me not long ago. She gets rid of the puzzle boxes, except for big jigsaw puzzles. But she gets rid of the puzzle pieces and puts the puzzles in a Ziploc bag, and then marks on the back a color, so that all like one puzzle will all have a blue dot on them. Another puzzle will all have yellow dots on them. So if the kids get them out, that it's the kids, and it should be the child's responsibility to put the puzzles back in the bag, so that it keeps things sort of organized. But I would have 4 or 5 puzzles at differing levels. And puzzles aren't expensive, and they're fun to sit down and work together, and it is part of the constructive process. As I said with little kids, they start with knocking blocks over. They then start building up shapes and things. Play-Doh, did we give Play-Doh? Okay, Play-Doh should be in there. Making Play-Doh, starting with a nothing Play-Doh and then having kids just start touching it and using their hands. So young kids, they'll play, and Play-Doh, the reason they make it all salty and nasty is because they don't want kids eating it. If we made Play-Doh yummy, then everybody would eat it. So there's also this stuff that we can make that's goo. Has anybody ever made goo? What's your goo recipe? With the cornstarch. It's pretty nasty stuff, but the kids love it. It gets real slimy. You make it with cornstarch and water and food color. I think that's about it. And you make this stuff in it, and then you can dye it in different colors. Pretty soon it gets nasty, but it's a very easy one afternoon activity. What I recommend with Play-Doh, in constructive Play-Doh, is letting kids start by themselves. But if you're playing with them, you can start rolling it in a ball. You can start rolling it out as a snake, and they'll watch you. And then they'll do it, and then you can help them. And you've modeled it, and then you can help them. And you can make the longest worm in the world or the biggest ball. And then you can start on something else. The neat thing about Play-Doh is you knock it down and it goes back to its original shape. Blocks, you knock them down, and it's a whole new adventure in play, right? What's some things that we could build with blocks? A fort, a castle, a garage, a dollhouse, a zoo. A what? A tower. A tower, and I'm glad you said a tower. The reason I like all these blocks is for young children, and if you get different sizes of boxes and get some duct tape, parents' best friend, right? It fixes broken anything, and it creates things. So you wrap some duct tape around the edges, and pretty soon, and you give them the blocks, and they start stacking them up. And pretty soon, they're getting stacks of blocks that are bigger than they are. And then they knock them down. And then they build it again. It's the kind of event that will go on for a good 20 minutes. That's a long time for a child to play in one thing. 20 minutes. When they're working with 2 children, or you are the playmate, you can make great big towers. And the towers, when they get bigger, now and the reason I said this would be bigger than most of your kids when we stack this up. So we'd have this, but pretty soon they're looking and it's like they created something bigger than they are. Now to us, that doesn't seem like a big deal. But to children, to have made this accomplishment, and when you go, oh my heavens, that's bigger than you are. The notion of size, that concept that you have just taught, is amazing. So when children are learning these things and they're experiencing, they're making things that are stronger and bigger than they, it changes their perception. Now, why not go out and buy some fancy set of blocks? You could. But the thing about things like this is that children like it just as well to see this. Our notions of beauty in children's are very, very different. Children, when your children are drawing, are any of your kids at the drawing stage where they're doing drawings for you? Are they proud of their work? Do they love it? Does it look a little bit like a Picasso? And it's theirs. They own it. It looks just like them, to them. We could show them a beautiful portrait or a photograph. They kind of look at it and they look at their art, but that's beautiful. Their blocks are beautiful to them. The things that they create are the things that are most exciting to them.